There's an old saying that honesty is the best policy. And that's definitely true because when people are honest with you, as opposed to leading you on, they're actually doing you a favor. And instead of being angry, upset, bitter, resentful, or least of all offended by it, you should actually appreciate them for telling you the truth because they're showing you who they really are, as opposed to the image of them that you had crafted in your mind. And a great example of this is our current Vice President, Kamala Harris, who many within the black community deemed as being black, even though she herself never explicitly said that. And of course, her lineage proves otherwise, which I'm going to address in this video. Now, speaking of which, this clip here is also in regards to an interview that she had 4 years ago on the griot, as in the griot politics, where she was being asked about the black agenda for the black community. And as she was addressing it, she mentioned, you know, historical talking points such as the legacy of slavery, Jim Crow, segregation, discrimination, along those lines. All historic. We know that to be a fact and true. In addition to that, she also talked about steps to take in regards to maternal mortality, the LIFT Act, HBCUs, tax credits for black families along those lines, and other things. But when it came to her being asked whether or not she supports reparations, that's when she, for the most part, showed her true colors and did a overall 180 on many of the blacks who voted for her and Joe Biden. It just goes to show you, man, that these, what was once covert, subtle racism by the Democratic Party is now blatant racism and disregard, right? But they're doing it in a nice way with a smile on their face. So, you can't get too mad at that. But anyway, I just wanted to just go ahead and delve into this video, give my perspective on it, my 2 cents. So, without further ado, let's get it.
Do you support reparations for Black people?
Well, listen, again, we had over 200 years of slavery. We had Jim Crow for almost a century. We had legalized discrimination, segregation, and now we have segregation and discrimination that is not legal but still exists and is a barrier to progress. We have disparities around housing. We have disparities around education. We have disparities around income. And we have to recognize that everybody did not start out on an equal footing in this country. And in particular, Black people have not. And so we have got to recognize that and do something about that and give folks a lift up. That's why, for example, I'm proposing the Lift Act. Give people who are making $100,000 or less as a family a tax credit, which will benefit and uplift 60% of Black families who are in poverty.
In order for that to happen, you need a two-parent household, Kamala. But wait, that's right. You and your ilk are not in favor of a two-parent household, particularly amongst black people, because through your kinsfolk, quote unquote, with the likes of LBJ with the Great Society Act, it made it to where many of these black fathers were kicked out the home to the point they couldn't function in their proper role as a father, as a husband, as a provider, right? And as an example for his wife and children. And and also as a result, you had a number or pretty much a whole generation of black men that were locked up for, petty crimes by our current president, Joe Biden. Sleepy Joe, Creepy Joe. Isn't that right, Kamala?
So by default, it affects Black families, but there's not a particular policy for African Americans that you would explore.
But no, if you look at the reality of who will benefit from certain policies, when you take into account that they're not starting at the same place, and they're not starting on equal footing, it will directly benefit Black children, Black families, Black homeowners, because the disparities are so significant. So if we focus on the specific issues that have resulted in the greatest disparities, and we understand that that's part of why we're doing it. Listen, the reality also is this: any policy that will benefit Black people will benefit all of society. Let's be clear about that. Let's really be clear about that. So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to do something that's only going to benefit Black people. No, because whatever benefits that Black family will benefit that community and society as a whole and the country, right?
So that's pretty much an end for that video. I just wanted to just take it back to right here, how it's amazing how she was able to say that with a straight face and in the tone that she said it in, right? But hey, at least she's being honest, right? So within that same vein, how she's not going to just do anything that's going to benefit Black people. Well, in that same manner, we, as many of us within the Black community, say, you know what, you have that same energy and no longer voting for her or anyone else in the Democratic Party, and pretty much sitting this whole thing out come 2024. All right. But with that said, you know, going back to what she stated, it's amazing how she said she wasn't going to do anything for Black people policy wise in regards to reparations, but she's the same one who stated at a National Action Network conference that if she were elected vice president, which she was, that she would sign a bill that would make it to where she would actually cite evidence of reparations for the descendants of slaves. All right, that's what she said. But yet, as she's staying right here, she's pretty much reneged on that. And that's why these super liberals are the perfect definition of a walking contradiction, and they cannot be trusted at all, nor taken seriously. This is why this topic of reparations is much more nuanced than any party, nor person, nor group is willing to address. Because we know for a fact that there are people on the right who oppose this, right? But as we can see on the left, people like, as we say, Kamala Harris opposes it. And another person who opposes reparations too is Bernie Sanders, right? Good old Bernie. Now, Bernie's a little different because even though he's against reparations for us, he's pro reparations for his people, seeing as how he's a Caucasian Jew. So automatically he's going to put his people first in regards to what happened to them with the Holocaust. Allegedly happened with the Holocaust, but just for the sake of conversation, that's the case. He's going to put his own first, as he should. And that's why we as a people, as a collective, need to start utilizing that mentality and mindset more and more, right? And another thing too I had to address too, it's also not too surprising that she would make this statement because during this same interview, when she was asked about the Black agenda, she pretty much told the interviewer that the needs of Black folks are the needs of everyone, and the needs of everyone are the needs of Black folks. So that's pretty much globalism in a nutshell, man. So why in the world? I guarantee you, if any of these people, these politicians, were speaking to anyone of any other race, I guarantee you they wouldn't, for the most part, would not use globalist uh, terminology like that. But when it comes to us, that's the case, And it's because out of all races of people, we're the most um cultureless right now. See, and that's what happens when you're divested of your culture, because it makes it to where you'll accept almost anyone and anything. So as long as you feel accepted, you feel liked, loved, appreciated, then you're pretty much good with that, as opposed to getting all those things from yourself and from your own people, one another. Hmm. That's where it's supposed to start. It starts there. That's supposed to be the foundation. Not always try to keep forcing yourself on everyone else. No, that's not the way it's supposed to go. All right. But one more thing too before I close out this video. On the flip side, the deeper reason why Kamala Harris is opposed to reparations, from my perspective, is because through her father, Donald Harris, going back to his paternal grandmother, Christiana Brown, aka Miss Chrissy, she herself was a descendant of a man named Hamilton Brown, who on record was a plantation and slave owner, right? And who was the founder of a place called Brownstown, right? So automatically that shows you that there were not only white slave owners here in America, but there were also black slave owners too. And that's why, again, man, that's why there's another big topic right now that's taking place is critical race theory. Because you see, I'm not against people teaching history. History should be taught. You have to understand the past, but at the same time, you have to understand uh, the past in its proper context and its proper narrative. All right. So if you're going to teach history, you have to teach all of it. But those who are over academia don't want to do that because they want to keep that divide up. They want to keep it going, as opposed to people just learning the truth from both sides, as opposed to just one side. And that's why for Kamala Harris in this case, her family most likely probably owned a black family or a Caucasian family or both. So as a result of that, by default, she would have to empty her bank account along with every pretty much every bank within America and other banks in certain countries that had their part in slavery. That's how much money it would take to quote unquote heal the damage that was done through quote unquote 400 years of slavery. Even though slavery did not last that long, even according to conventional history. So again, man, this is this is again all this is nuance, man. There's different perspectives, viewpoints from all sides, so it's going to be pretty much for the most part, it's going to be startling revelations that have to show to the forefront, and that one of them being that, yes, all black people are not the descendants of slaves, and that there were definitely blacks in America who were not only free, were not only descendants of free blacks, but also free blacks who themselves became slave owners and participated in slave activity, right? And some of them slaves being with their own family members. So again, it's a lot to take in, man, and it's definitely a bitter pill to swallow. And that's why they don't. And that's why these leftists, who control the school system, are not willing to address this type of information, because as a result, it would obliterate the victimhood mentality that has been poisonous and deleterious to the black community for years. For years. And that would definitely take us a huge step further going in the right direction as opposed to going off path in the wrong direction. All right. But anyway, with that said, I just wanted to just delve into this video, and we now know where Kamala Harris stands on reparations, and I can honestly appreciate her for being honest and real, because you know that's that. So peace.